Imagine waking up to the smell of smoke, not from your morning toast burning, but from your entire city engulfed in flames. That's precisely what happened in Rome on the night of July 19, 64 AD, marking the beginning of what history remembers as the Great Fire of Rome. This wasn't a quick or containable blaze. It started in the bustling merchant shops around the Circus Maximus, a lively hub filled with tightly packed stalls, goods, oil, and flammable supplies. Once ignited, the fire spread with alarming speed, moving like a beast unchained through the city's wooden arteries. It wasn't just a matter of a few unfortunate homes catching fire. For 6 relentless days, flames devoured neighborhoods, only for the blaze to reignite and rage again for 3 more. By then, a significant portion of the city had already been reduced to ash. The first night was chaos incarnate. Terrified citizens woke to the horror of crimson skies, the air thick with ash and the screams of the fleeing. Desperation hung heavy, as people tried to save their belongings or simply find their loved ones in the smoky confusion. It was, to put it mildly, a very bad week for ancient Roman real estate. Despite all its imperial pomp and architectural grandeur, Rome was something of a fire trap. Imagine a sprawling metropolis, 1 million people strong, crammed into winding streets, lined with densely packed buildings, many of them multi-story tenements known as insulae. These structures were mostly built of wood, often carelessly maintained, and separated by little more than narrow alleyways that acted like kindling paths for fire. The city wasn't exactly designed with disaster in mind. Urban planning was inconsistent at best, and the winding, chaotic layout ensured that once a fire began, there were few barriers to halt its spread. Worse yet, the common Roman practice of cooking indoors using open flames made accidental fires a routine occurrence. Add in the dry summer climate, and you have a city as flammable as a box of matches in a drought. While Rome did have a firefighting force, the vigils, they were poorly equipped and easily overwhelmed. Their efforts to douse flames with buckets and primitive pumps were laughably inadequate against an inferno of this scale. Water was scarce, equipment rudimentary, and communication slow. In short, when disaster struck, Rome had almost no defense. Once the fire took hold, it transformed into a monstrous force. High summer winds fanned the flames, driving them from rooftop to rooftop, building to building. The fire didn't just move, it leapt. It consumed entire districts in hours, turning neighborhoods into infernos. Flames danced along rooftops like malevolent spirits, while acrid smoke filled the sky, choking out the sun and plunging parts of the city into eerie twilight. Within the first few days, 3 of Rome's 14 districts were completely destroyed, nothing left but charred ruins. 7 more suffered serious damage. Entire hillsides, including parts of the Palatine and Caelian hillsonts, home to Rome's elite, were engulfed. Not even the most sacred structures were spared. Temples, shrines, libraries, and public buildings burned to the ground. And amidst all this devastation, looters took advantage of the chaos. Some accounts suggest that individuals intentionally spread the fire for their own gain, whether to rob homes, settle scores, or even fulfill orders from mysterious higher authorities. Rome wasn't just burning, it was unraveling. When the flames finally died down, the aftermath was staggering. What remained of once bustling neighborhoods were now ghostly shells of their former selves. The air was thick with the smell of soot and despair. Tens of thousands were homeless. Families had been torn apart, possessions lost forever, and livelihoods wiped out overnight. The psychological toll on the Roman people was profound. This was not just physical destruction. It was a deep wound to the city's soul. A collective trauma settled over Rome as survivors picked through the rubble of their homes, many with nothing left to their names but the clothes on their backs. To his credit, Emperor Nero returned from Antium shortly after the blaze began. These efforts helped, but the scale of the crisis overwhelmed everyone, including the emperor. He acted quickly to set up emergency shelters in public buildings, and even opened his own gardens for the displaced. Temporary food depots were established to prevent famine and unrest. Nero's post-fire actions are among the most scrutinized in Roman history. Some praised his swift relief efforts. Others were more skeptical, especially when he seemed a little too eager to launch into the city's rebuilding. Regardless of motive, Nero seized the opportunity to transform Rome into a more modern city. He introduced new building codes, mandating the use of stone and brick over wood, required proper spacing between buildings, and incorporated porticos to help slow future fires. Wider streets were planned, straightened where possible, in contrast to the chaotic alleys of old. Public squares and fountains were included to provide easier access to water. This was arguably the beginning of thoughtful Roman urban planning. But, as always with Nero, things took a dark turn, especially when it came to what he built for himself amid all that reconstruction. As rumors swirled about Nero's possible involvement, some believed he started the fire to clear space for his grand palace. The emperor knew he needed a scapegoat. Enter the Christians. This small, marginalized religious group was already viewed with suspicion. They refused to participate in Roman religious rituals, which struck many as subversive and even treasonous. Their secret meetings, strange rituals, including the misunderstood practice of communion, and rejection of Roman gods, made them the perfect target for public ire. Nero accused them of arson, and what followed was one of the first state-sponsored persecutions of Christians. Horrific executions were carried out. Some were crucified, others burned alive to serve as human torches in Nero's garden parties. This marked the beginning of centuries of intermittent persecution and forever tied Christian suffering to the fire's legacy. Historians have been arguing about the fire's true cause for nearly 2,000 years. Was it really an accident? Just a perfect storm of summer heat, wooden buildings, and bad luck? Or did someone light the match on purpose? Tacitus, the most reliable source from the time, was skeptical of Nero, but admitted the truth was murky. Suetonius and Cassius Dio were more willing to point fingers, accusing Nero of starting the blaze to clear land for his grand project, the Domus Aurea. The truth? We may never know. It could have been accidental. It could have been arson. What we do know is that the political fallout was immense and the social consequences devastating. It's a historical cold case with conflicting witnesses, no hard evidence, and a whole lot of speculation. Despite the trauma, Rome was nothing if not resilient. Reconstruction began almost immediately. The use of concrete and fireproof materials became widespread. City planning took a major leap forward with better infrastructure, sanitation systems, and more organized districts. This period also saw a boom in construction, employment and trade, as artisans, builders, and architects were called upon to rebuild the imperial capital. However, the cost was staggering, draining the imperial treasury and increasing the tax burden across the empire. And then there was the Domus Aurea. Built on land cleared by the fire, this sprawling palace featured artificial lakes, vineyards, gilded halls, and rotating dining rooms. It was an architectural marvel and a political disaster. Many saw it as proof that Nero had started the fire for personal gain. Public opinion soured rapidly, and the emperor's descent into tyranny only worsened. The Great Fire of Rome has captivated the imagination for centuries. It symbolizes both the destructive power of disaster and the resilience of human civilization. Whether or not Nero truly fiddled while Rome burned, spoiler, fiddles didn't exist yet, the story endures as a parable of poor leadership, blame shifting, and the high cost of urban neglect. For historians, the fire remains a fertile ground for debate and interpretation. For urban planners, it's a case study in how cities can be reimagined after catastrophe. For religious scholars, it marks the beginning of a long and complex relationship between Rome and Christianity. Ultimately, the fire did more than destroy. It reshaped. It changed the way Romans lived, built, governed, and remembered. In its ashes, a new Rome emerged, stronger in some ways and forever haunted in others. It stands as a reminder that even in great ruin, there is the potential for reinvention, and that sometimes rebuilding means not just laying new stones, but learning painful lessons from the old. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe for more content like this.
It's London Lee.